Hello and welcome, everyone. It is day 2 of the Osmompreneur Online Festival. My name is Peace Mitchell, and I'm co-founder of Osmompreneur, the Women's Business School, and Women Changing the World Press. We have an amazing presenter who's going to be presenting shortly, but before I welcome her, I would like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land which we meet on, the Mamu people of North Queensland. And I would like to acknowledge traditional owners and elders past, present and emerging all over Australia and the Torres Strait. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce our presenter for our next session, Leah Chandler of KidsFit Australia. Welcome, Leah.
Hi, Peace. It's nice to see you.
It's good to see you too. So, Leah, for people who haven't met you before, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about who you are and what it is that you do?
My name's Leah Chandler. I run KidsFit Australia. We keep kids and families and educators fit for everyday life. And we do that by the way of working through yoga and mindfulness programs, fitness and wellness programs around supporting inclusive behaviour.
Beautiful. Okay, well, I'll let you take it away now. Please, if you have any questions for Leah, just jot them down and we'll do question time at the end if time permits. All right, over to you, Leah.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Leah Chandler. I'm just going to take you through some slides. I'm just trying to figure out why I can't see my sharing button yet. Just a moment. Peace, do you know where the sharing button?
Should be at the bottom of your screen, a little green arrow. Can you see that?
Yes, here we go. We're in here. Okay, sorry, went to the wrong spot all of a sudden.
That's okay.
All right.
There we go.
We have liftoff. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about creating inclusive communities. And this slide's very dear to me. This is my children. Oh, it's on. This is my children. Basically, when Madeline, you can see at the front, was able to attend her first concert. And I found that just so awesome because she was sensory needs, all those kind of things, and she loves music and was able to attend that. And both my kids there, I've got Will on the right, who's also got autism, more on the end of Asperger's and ADHD, and my son on the other side is Mitchell, was supporting those two, being a good big brother. But now they're much older. One's nearly 12, one's 15, and one's actually just turned 19. So this is how we started, I guess, our journey into KidsFit. Okay, so I've just sort of talked about myself and what we do. But basically, the reason we do what we do is because of our own family. You can see our crazy life in the middle there. That's pretty much us in a nutshell. So we started with our middle son, who was showing a lot of, explosive behaviour, very sensory, very anxious, just not able to fit in school, but very intelligent. And we were trying to figure out what was happening, couldn't work out his personality. It was sort of a bit hard to work that out. And then we started to go through some indications with autism, Asperger's, ADHD, and a variety of different things. And we discovered there was a lot of inconsistencies around the community help with that. So we started with just being in class, watching him, but then realised looking through the classroom, there were so many kids just like our family that needed some help and were showing severe signs of anxiety and lots of other things. But also we noticed the educators were either not equipped to handle that many kids with things emerging, or they just weren't sure how to manage the class situation in general because there was so much going on. So we thought, well, how can we be part of the solution to this? Because we really needed some help as a family. And we started to put together some programs just in our local school, actually, to see how we could help that situation just in our own backyard. And then that sort of just took off, and we started to work more with parents and families on top of the kids' programs, and started to work with the educators and try to sort of fill that gap where there's not as much support, but also just not enough chatter. So between them, it was just disjointed. So no one was talking. So we wanted to see if we could actually bridge that gap and get people to actually become a community around that inclusion. And that included the burnout situation with educators and also with parents, because we've definitely been there on the parents' angle, and we've definitely seen educators go through burnout, especially very good ones that really want to make an effort and work with kids and actually have a good impact. So that's how we started. And I guess that's our why. My daughter's in a special school. She's got dyspraxia, autism, an auditory processing delay. So it means when she hears, it takes a little while for that to actually go to the right part of the brain to actually take that in. So she often will use subtitles and things like that. And she'll just take some time to process some stuff. And my son, he's doing quite well now in mainstream, but works a lot of strategies. So we did a lot of work in the background and still has strategies he works. And we always still work through those things that he needs as he's growing. And my son, our oldest son, we worked a lot with him on learning how to actually deal with people that perhaps have those disabilities. So he's quite good at seeing in others what others don't see. So we're quite proud of that. So I just wanted to give you some stats. I thought the stats, we're looking for some new stats, but this is the closest ones we can get so far, the best ones. So autism and ADHD and anxiety, of course, are really classed as a mental or a behavioural condition. And you can see there's a lot of Australians that have that. So 4.8 million, that's a fairly large number. And then you've got 3.2 million Australians that have an anxiety-related condition. So you can see anxiety around the world today is pretty large, particularly in Australia. And depression obviously is there as well. And then you've got almost 1 in 3 females aged between 15 and 24 had a mental or behavioural condition, and just 1 in 5, 21.3% males are the same age. And I just want to touch on that one because this is information that is down the track when kids are actually already in their teens. So some of the things we like to do in our actual own programs is to start early as well. So we do work with everybody of all ages, between 18 and I guess all the way down to 2. But we actually see that we need to have early intervention, because what you're seeing right there is actually a lot of things that already are emerging, but not dealt with. So that's something I'd like to highlight. So we're talking about ADHD. So it was the most common disorder for children. So we see that a lot. We see a lot of emerging ADHD. And obviously, most outwards behaviour tends to be in boys. Some girls tend to fly under the radar because their behaviour can be quite different. That's something that we're also addressing as a community, because girls do get missed a lot between autism and ADHD and struggle immensely at school. And anxiety disorders were the second most common disorders amongst all children. And the most common here amongst girls. So that's interesting to note. Okay. So the conversation we want to have today is the importance of creating a supportive, inclusive community, and how can we as parents or carers, and if you're an educator, how can we work together to support our youth and each other? Because we do find the disjointed behaviour even of how people don't want to work together is a bit sad. So we want to make sure that we work to support our youth to grow so they can actually become just as supportive as a community when they become adults and have good mental health as well. So the disconnect. So I'd like to talk a little bit about educators, and I'll talk about parents and carers and families. So educators get frustrated when unable to work together with parents. So that's normally to help a child cope socially. So social understanding, behaviour, you can see anxiety. So you want to address that to see how you can help with coping. And just learning. So how do they learn? Are they tactile? And that's part of being sensory. Are they audio, visual, whatever it might be? How do they learn, and how can you adapt your programs to give those options? And that is quite a tough feat if you have 30 in a class. In a special school, there's a little bit more help in the fact they have smaller classes and they're tailored totally to that. But in mainstream, big issue, because there's a lot of kids sitting in those classes that don't quite fit in a special school, but they fit sort of in the middle. So I think those kids particularly have a rough time. So that's how, and the educators that work with that. So that's something that is very important to understand and see how you can seek help for that as a parent, but also as an educator. So you will notice that this can cause resentment with the parents because you feel like as an educator, perhaps they're not addressing it. It's not always the case, and actually often it's not. Either they're not seeing that because they're not sitting in a class of 30 and they're not seeing the same thing at home because home is safe. So we see a high amount of parents and educators butting heads, but really both wanting to come from the same place of wanting to help their child and help their child move forward, but doing it in the manner that's not actually helpful. And also that burnout is actually eminent in those educators when they do that and also don't get the help as a support from other senior educators and their parents and carers as a community. So we want to be able to be part of that situation where we connect those and actually get them to realise that they're part of the same team. So big emotions, emerging behaviour and diagnosed conditions tend to be what you see, but we want to make sure not only are they addressed, but also that the community is actually set up right. So we want to see if we can let go of that disconnect. So disconnect with parents, and I'm sure if you're a parent listening, you may have been here just for any sort of situation as your kids are growing. We do get frustrated and defensive, especially when we have life going on. I just remember when I had Madeline's emerging stuff where she was right in your face. She had lots of physical things as well as mental things. But Will was out there. We were trying to control that situation. So we were constantly running back and forth, putting out fires, if you like. You kind of just have to do it. But when I was told about Madeline, I was a little frustrated because I was already pretty burnt out. So perhaps I didn't come across so well when I was talking to the educators that wanted to help. Some weren't at all helpful. Some I had to sort of be that parent. But after a while, I started to realise that they just wanted the good educators wanted the same outcome as us. And we had to start looking at taking a breath, and it's not about us, but taking that time out and actually seeing what it is at school. And that's why I sat in class as well. And then moving forward with that. But yeah, making sure you challenge those behaviours from educators that aren't okay. And also, obviously, they challenge you too. So that's kind of healthy if it's done in the right way. And you actually get a lot of mutual respect that way. And you can actually put a better plan in place to help those children, and ask your kids, because the kids actually often, if you give choices, the kids actually often pick good choices, and they actually want to move forward and not feel like that. So they're definitely part of the mix. So yeah, definitely parents get frustrated, not coping socially, and perhaps they're having stress and they're hurting other kids, not meaning to, but it's just coming out in their emotional behaviour. Trouble learning. Kids can see, often they can see, particularly mainstream, that they're not able to do something well or they're having issues. So they'll play out because they just don't know what to do with that information. And they don't know how to ask, especially if they're young, okay? Or they haven't been taught how to model that behaviour on actually learning to ask for what they need. It's a very important behaviour for parents to model, so the parents can model, so the kids can model it as well. And not hitting age-appropriate milestones. Now, I just want to touch on this because sometimes kids don't always hit milestones at certain points. And that is actually okay, because people mature at different times, particularly when they're kids. But if you're seeing reoccurring things that are constantly not being hit, then that's something you need to consider some help for, because it's only affecting the child so much that they are starting to see anxiety often, and then you'll see that behaviour that comes out that's obviously not appropriate behaviour, and then that causes other issues on top of that. So just be aware of that. It's a bit of a fine line on that, just knowing that sometimes you just need to learn to watch, and then if they constantly don't get to those milestones and you can see frustration from it, that's when you need to make sure that you put something in place, a plan, work with an educator and see if they can help in school, but also perhaps seek outside help. Okay, so yes, it does cause resentment between educators, because if educators are constantly asking about something and perhaps they're not asking in the right way that suits your speak, or where you are right now, because you might have other things going on, it does come across as a personal attack, perhaps in your head, but it's often not that way. It's often meant to be that, look, we want to work smoothly in this classroom. We want to have everything work properly. And then we can go from there. So just take a step back as a parent, just process it, take some time. And I've said this to educators, parents need time to process. So don't be quick to judge on that, and give them some time, but just work out how you best speak to them, and watch how you do that. Bridging the gap. Okay, so this is what we're good at. We recognise the fear, we see where educators are, and educators understanding the parents that are frightened of children having difficulties and that they may feel personally that they're not equipped to deal with these issues. Who as a parent feels like they're sometimes an imposter as a parent? Like, it's totally true. We always feel like we're just not doing it good enough. And did we give that example? Are we modeling correctly? Blah, blah, blah. Like, the list goes on. Give yourself a break, take a breath. You're doing the best you know with what you have. The thing I would recommend is, if you are feeling like you're out of depth, find someone you can talk to about it. And you might actually realize that you're not so much out of depth. It's just parenting. And it's I guess, muddy waters sometimes. But also find that community that can actually work with you in a positive way, to give perhaps some solutions for your family situation. Be kind, inform, give time, and ask for follow-up. So what information can educators give or direct parents to? So sometimes it's direction that educators can give. They can give some information and say, look, we thought maybe you'd like to take your child here, or there's some information online. Sometimes just pointing them to the direction of online information that they can just process in their own time and then follow up with that, can actually ease the burden of very direct traffic. So when you talk directly to someone, they might just not be ready for it. So just be aware of that. So same for parents. Sometimes they can direct educators to some information that might be helpful to them. We connected our speech therapist, our OT, anybody that we thought had some ideas that would work really well. We actually connected them as a community. Our pediatrician, we gave the okay for that. So we were all on the email chain. We talked about different things that may help, and we just kept it really simple. So 1 or 2 tips would send out to the educator, but we would all be in the loop, and it made such a difference because they all felt like they were actually part of that. And also it was simple information that they weren't overloaded with. And same for parents. If the educator sent something to us that they thought was necessary, we could forward that through to all of our community, and that would be helpful too. So if parents aren't receptive or need more time, what can educators put in place now to support the child's peers and themselves? So I know that educators have particular processes they've got to work, particularly with additional needs, or seeing emerging behaviour. So my son was put on behaviour plans like I don't know how many times because of how his behaviour was, because it was unusual. But as soon as we had a diagnosis, what a change that plan looked to actually being a behaviour plan. So really push for some help with that, but also educators can still put in place some information that they can actually read about themselves. There's so much information now that they can put in place. They can put in some yoga and mindfulness. They can put in some sensory help in the classroom. There's so many options they can do that's actually cost effective and that they'll be allowed to do. So those kind of things are actually within their control. And then go from there and then see if the parents are receptive the next time you chat, or perhaps pass on that information that we talked about. Okay, so with parents, acknowledging that educators have a very rewarding yet very hard job working with most children at once. And they have their own learning phases, so including the difficult ones, the way they speak, understand the receptive language, that kind of thing. It takes time to have that. And some kids will pick it up quicker than others. Acknowledge that good educators want the best outcome for all children, and that they are actually doing the caring for, and then ask for help and support. So like we talked about, what techniques or ideas do educators have that are helping your children? So they often have some really good ideas that perhaps they've been busy and they just haven't shared yet. So push for that, ask for the information, because they will only pick it up. Educators go, oh yeah, I should actually give that information out because it's really working in class. You don't know that because you're not sitting there. Okay, so ask for that and see if they've got some stuff in place that will really help you as a parent at home, or in a social situation. Educators that are really good educators think outside the box, that they usually have some really great options. And they often work with senior additional needs staff to also put in strategies. So you can only ask those questions if they haven't been given to you just yet, and ask for a meeting and find out those things in class, how they're going and what else you can do to help and be on the same page for. You have to be proactive with that. And don't ever be afraid to do that. Keep asking until you get it, because sometimes schools get busy, but they are your kids. They're in class about 6 hours a day. At school, maybe 7, depending on how long your lunches and stuff are. Yeah, very important to know what's going on there. Okay. So research, and remember, there is lots of places you can go to actually research. So if you're unsure about certain behaviour, or you're not sure about something, ask for some help. Your educators often will have some information. If they don't, start asking around your community and find out some information where you can go to for certain information. There's a lot of help available. And if you do want any help with certain information, please come to me. I'm happy to give you some more information on places to go for that. And don't ever be unsure to ask. It's we're feeling inadequate as a parent. We have those feelings of self-doubt, but really ask for what you need. What help do you require as a parent to feel good about what you're doing? Okay, acceptance. Yes, we've changed our children out of classes before because we can see the educator is not for them. It's not a criticism on the educator. It's just not the sort of educator that needs to be with our child right now. Particularly when they're young and there's less understanding on things for your child. And sometimes educators dismiss it, and you can see that's going to be detrimental. Ask for a change and see who you can actually find to actually bridge that gap, so they don't dismiss those things that you need to be addressed in class, so that your child can be safe and well and you don't go crazy as a parent. So like I said, back yourself. You're definitely not going crazy. You're worried, and that's okay. And it's totally valid. So please don't let anyone tell you different. What you feel is totally valid. Accept that you need to look for a centre or school that will work for you. Get help from professionals that listen to you and will assess your child, and also work with their school. Look after yourself as well. I want to touch on this because particularly mums, we run the gauntlet. We do everything around, where the taxis, where we pick up everywhere, where things are left. I've got a shift working husband who's awesome. He does everything around that, but he still shifts work. So we have to change a lot because of that. So we tend to do that as mums. And I've also got children that are all different ages that have different things going on. No matter what their age, they still need their family. They still need their parents. So you've got to make sure that you're there for them. But also you can't be there for anyone if you're not looking after yourself. And I can tell you from experience, I was very shocked at burnout, and I've spoken about this in the book. Quite a strong person, and was totally shocked to find myself basically bursting into tears at random situations, sobbing uncontrollably too, not just like, you know, the snot thing and everything. So that was such a shock. And then realizing that I was so far past the point of burnout that I just needed to stop. I needed to reassess, and I needed to sort that out. And it's actually taken me right up until now for my body to sort that out. And that's been quite a few years. So stress is a major factor on big health issues. So please look after yourself, take time out, even if it's 10 minutes just to meditate, listen to some music, whatever it is that you do that actually will help your body and mind stay calm. And just take time out to actually think about things when you need them, because sometimes we go from one to the other and we just can't give that the best things, the most important things, the attention we need. So really think about how you're looking after yourself. As a parent, we have such a big job, but we are still other people. We have our own lives, and we need to make sure that we are happy. So discuss with your whole family when strategies need to be put in place, and be honest about what is needed and why. So the one thing that I think we've been very good at as a family is that we've communicated everything in the right way to our kids. I'm sure we've had the odd one thing that we haven't done right, but it's worse if you don't communicate. It's better if you do. We spoke to our oldest son. We spoke to our kids about things. We're actually having a conversation with my daughter, Madeline, about it, her autism at the moment. So we're slowly working through what that means for her, because she can understand that. And Will's all over his. He's excellent at seeing it in others and actually being kind and helping others that he can see have the same struggles as him. But that would only happen if we had those conversations and worked those strategies, but also included the whole family in that. And also the strategies when we talk to others, like Madeline's got some fine motor issues, and for 1 year we got everybody involved, helping her how to butter toast, and she can make her lunch now and do all those things to give her good quality of life. But we got all the kids to be calm and involved, because she, it wasn't always great, and you should see the butter that used to mount up and the jam. And so if you're a little bit OCD, that used to you sort of be twitching, but it doesn't matter. You just have to get everyone involved and let it go, and then she can do all those things now. But that took about a year, so you got to have a little bit of patience, and remember that they feel like they can't do stuff, but if you give them that leeway to learn, it's great. And also, when you've got siblings actually helping out, the siblings feel like they are actually learning to be leaders. And we accidentally stumbled on that the first few times that we communicated it, and realized actually some of the kids have some really good things to actually have input on, and they actually would help the kids implement something even better than we thought it would be. So kids are pretty amazing, and they see a lot of things that we don't in their siblings. So it's really good to involve them as well. And the other thing is involve your other family. So we've had struggles with both sides of our family, trying to learn the situation of behaviour and all the things that go with kids growing up. But obviously we had layers on that. Just be upfront, communicate what you need, and eventually I'm sure things will work out for you. But it's really, you got to hold your ground, but you've also got to do things with love, because parents, grandparents have grown up in a certain way, and it takes time for them to actually accept changes to that. So we've just got to be kind on that, but also firm in how we want to have these things work, because we know that they are going to help our child later. It's very important to just have them on board, but remember to be kind and be patient. It might take some time. Okay, so I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about how we do what we do. And we work within schools and early learning centres. We work with mindful moving, kids yoga and mindfulness and fitness programs, and we tailor that to the children we're working with. We work between ages of 2 and 6 within early learning centres, and obviously between the ages of 5, depending on the school throughout Australia, all the way up to 18. And we work with additional needs as well as mainstream schools. So programs for both sides of the coin look very different. Move, play, calm, parents and carer sessions. we look after parents because we know how that feels to struggle. And we do short sessions that are practical, that parents and carers can actually learn techniques to help their children. So calm down techniques, techniques for sleep, regulation, self-regulation techniques, but also not just for their child, but for them, and also for them as couples. If you've got a family that have husband and wife, or couples. So we talk about the importance of looking after each other, but also really making sure that you can self-regulate. So you can only model that to your child if you are doing it, and your children start to see that over time. So we talk about that, but we give you lots of good options that you can take away. And a Move, Play, Focus educator session is a similar idea to our parents and carers, but we work in an educator situation. And we also focus on how our parents and carers and our educators can communicate better in both of those sessions. And the educator sessions are lots of fun because we show lots of movement ideas, how to keep your kids focused when they come into school. So that's a lot of fun, using movement as a bit of a catalyst, however that looks depending on what they're needing on the day. So we show lots of options for that. And we do that nationally. If you'd like some more information, we're just getting some things done on our website at the moment, but our website is still up. KidsFitAustralia.com is where you can go for that. And we will have lots of one-on-one stuff coming up too. Here we go. So online mindful moving, kids yoga and mindfulness. We're going to have some programs coming up. We're going to launch into lounge rooms shortly. Our parents and carers will also go online so we can reach rural and remote. And also we're still not sure how COVID's going, so we'll make sure that we can also be part of that solution. And educator sessions will also go up online, so just watch that space. You'll see some changes over the next couple of weeks on our website, and I'm very excited to have everybody go there. So everyone, if you like, I'd love for you to just do one thing, and I've done this with Peace and Katie before. I like to teach magical hands, and we do this a lot in all our programs, even with adults. Obviously a different speak, but we're going to take you through magical hands, and all this is a very, very simple thing. Magical hands is using your hands and tracing a hand with a finger, but we do it slowly, and we use our breath when we go up to the top of our finger. So we breathe in through our nose, and as we breathe out, you can breathe out through your mouth or your nose, depending on how that feels for you. And that's when you go down your finger. And you just repeat that pattern until you finish tracing your hand. But we go as super slow as we can. And what I would recommend is to focus on listening to me with your ears, and then actually looking at your hand at the same time, because it takes peripheral vision away. So that obviously takes the sense away where you can calm your body already. So just watching your hand when you do it, so it helps calm that sense. And then we also work sensory as in touch, according to the breath as well. So we work that way. So let's try that. So if everybody wants to just put their hand in place here, all we have to do is just use that finger. So our pointer finger, start at the top here, and we just take a big deep breath, go all the way to the top of our finger. And as we breathe out, come down our finger. Slowly to the next one, big breath in. Go super slow, big breath out, down to the bottom. Big breath in, and then big breath out. Big breath in, big breath out. And just one more to go. Big breath in, and then big breath out. So I want you to take a second, put both hands up, and see the difference between both hands. And I want you to feel the difference on both sides of the body. And you might even find even the side of your head that you've had the magical hands on is quite different to the feel of the other side. And then we want to even that up to make our whole body feel calm. So we'll put our thumb up here, okay? Pointer finger, and let's do that again on the other side. So big breath in, and slowly out to the bottom. Big breath in, and big breath out. Big breath in and big breath out. 2 more to go. Big breath in and big breath out. And just 1 more. Big breath in and big breath out. And that's magical hands. And you can take time to just chill here, or you can go on with your day, and you can teach that to kids and make it a game to go even slower than what you're doing. So make it a game. That's my magical hands. And if there's any questions, you can either put them online now, or you can basically put them up into the recording later, and I will happily answer some questions. So feel free to do that. But thank you for attending the session today. And I hope what you do read from me, it's quite a strong chapter, makes sense to you, and that you really enjoy, I guess, my perspective on finding the silver lining.
Thank you so much, Leah. It was beautiful, beautiful session. I love the magic hands at the end. That was really, really lovely. And I haven't read your chapter yet. I have my book here. I might go do that now. Read through.
It's a first go at writing, so hopefully it sounded okay.
Yeah, no, I'm interested in seeing it. I know it was a big thing for you to write this chapter.
Yes, it was big because it's all about things that I couldn't control in regards to my kids, and that's quite hard to talk about. So it's the start off the process of actually being able to talk about that in person a little more.
Yeah, that's huge. It's huge. So congratulations.
Thank you, Peace,
for getting there and doing that, because there's so much power in telling your story. It's such a healing process.
Yes.
even though it's difficult, even though it's so hard.
Well, I can talk about it a lot more now. I do get really emotional still, but I can talk about it a lot better than after writing it than I could before. It was a good experience for sure.
Yeah. And, I think there's parents out there who need to read this story, who need to hear this perspective from someone else who's been through these kind of challenges, because there's so many families in Australia who are facing challenges like you faced. Yes.
The biggest realization is, like I said, when we sat in class and realized, just sitting, and that was that's quite a few years ago. Our son's like 15 now, and that was when he was sort of 7 and 8, and seeing, and we were in I guess that you call in the Territory, I guess a little bit more rural in regards to the rest of Australia. So there was less help there and less understanding. Different now, but definitely harder. And I found, just looking around, you could really see the issues that were happening. And now that we live in Brisbane and we've been working in other parts of Australia and here, it's definitely really evident, the more behaviour that's coming through, and emerging conditions are definitely there. And it's definitely a conversation that needs to happen.
Yeah. And for so many parents, when they get the diagnosis, I know that they just feel so isolated and alone and not sure what to do. And it's huge.
Well, there's 2 ways I see parents look at it. And sometimes it's relief that they've got something in writing, and that they can now look up those conditions or find the right people to work with that. Even if it is overwhelming, they still have something that they can, I guess, refer to. But there's all these other conversations around that. But then you have the others that will be, I'm not sure if you'd use the word denial, but possibly denial. Nothing's wrong, but the child's really struggling. They're not happy. Their things are going on, and they're just, really tough. So we see both sides of that. But you just got to find a happy medium for those families to recognize that it's okay that there's things going on, and it's an acceptance thing first. We have to accept there's some issues there, and then how do we help put the strategies in place, and how do we go about doing that is the biggest thing. And you definitely get other parents judging, and you get lots of other things going on. You have to learn to let that go, and that's a very difficult thing when you're in a community. But eventually you've got to find your crowd that are going to support you no matter what. So that's something you have to look at. And we do that in business, don't we? Like, we look for those 5 or 6 people that are our big community that we go to for support. It's very much the same in our family life. We look for the right families to actually be part of that crowd, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. In business, there'll be people who say, oh, you can't do that. That'll never make any money. But then there's the people who are like, you can do this. You've got this. That's a great idea, and cheer you on. So yeah, I guess it is the same. And it's about finding those people who will support you and reaching out and asking for help when you need help.
Yes. And I think the asking for help acceptance part is a very, very difficult one for everybody. Like I said, I definitely have been there and got such a shock. I remember had a bit of a chat to a senior teacher one day. We're walking into class and into school like 20 minutes late or something. And Madeline had she was all sensory. She had all her hair half out, half dressed. Will had just had a meltdown. It had his bag half open. It was just hilarious, really. And one of the teachers came past and said, you know, it would be really good if you can get your kids here on time. And I said to him, and this is, I'm talking senior teacher, and I must have looked the same too, by the way. So I said to him, you know what? I'm really excited we're here. We made it. I said, so I'm going to take the small wins, thank you, and walked away and let it go. But that senior teacher since then has become a very good community person over time. We just worked hard with that person to understand us. But yeah, I definitely was quite vocal after a while. And when you're tired and you're just, you've had a battle just getting kids to school, you're just happy if you get there. So sometimes you just got to cut your losses on some things, but those situations happen to a lot of families. And if you have any kids that actually suffer just from anxiety, that's a battle every day. So we look at trying to be part of that solution to give techniques to help those kids understand that it's okay to feel that way. But look, we can give you some options to try and move through that. So same for the parents, because parents also often have anxiety too. Sometimes when you're in the house with anxiety, you tend to end up with symptoms of that as well. It's just part of the deal. And recognizing that is very important as a parent to go, oh my gosh, I'm seeing this now. What can I do about me? And then actually sometimes when you look for techniques for yourself and model it, all of a sudden, what do you know? Kids are doing it. So yeah.
Oh, it's a journey, parenting. It's just, you're always learning and facing challenges and all of the things. But
yes. And then understanding kids actually are very astute. They pick up a lot of stuff, even when they've got communication issues and things like that. There's a lot of things that they will pick up still in emotions. Whether they know what to do with it or not is another thing, but they often are picking up all those vibes, and that's why you do see the outwards behavior as well. So if you're having stress in your life, kids will know whether you've talked about it or not. So this is where we talk about communication with your kids and trying to find a way to talk to them about things that are happening and being get them to understand what's happening in life if it's appropriate at the time. Because you'll be surprised, kids will start to understand and then they'll see the resilience of how you're moving through that. It is actually creating resilience in them as well. So it's a very important situation to do that. And I know it's tough. I know it's hard to be vulnerable in front of your kids. But if you are, to a certain degree, they will actually go, well, that's okay for me to actually ask for that help when I need it, which is, the issues we have in our Western society is not asking for it. And knowing how to be resilient and looking at strategies to move through things and learning how to do that yourself, but then knowing what point that you need that help and how to do that. And it's such a skill that people don't have. And kids coming through now, it's quite scary. You don't see them have any of those resilient sort of skills. And it's important to have that But that's a model from parents as well and society itself.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being our presenter today, Leah. How can people get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me by jumping on our website, kidsfitaustralia.com. And you can see that in the background of me as well. And KidsFit Aust is LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. So kids, just like it says, fit like fitness, and AUST for Australia. And all three of Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, if you just search for that, you'll find us. So you can find me any of those places.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Leah. And that concludes our session. We'll be back shortly with our next presenter. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Peace. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.